Former Minnesota Vikings general manager Rick Spielman was the man in charge here for almost a decade and a half, and Spielman does deserve a little bit of flack for some of the notable misses that he's had in the draft. Matt Khalil, Christian Ponder, Laquan Treadwell, Mike Hughes, etc. But he has had some decent hits, like Justin friggin' Jefferson, Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, Daniil Hunter, among them, etc. So a bit of a mixed bag with Rick Spielman. Now, there have been some talk about him in Jacksonville, him in Pittsburgh, but he hasn't gotten back on the horse. So I think that he may do some media stuff this next year, and I think Spielman would be fantastic in that role. And he started things off by talking to our guy Doogie, KSTP Sports. This write-up is from our friends over at Vikings Wire. Spielman hints at first draft pick if he was... so who would he take at 12 if he was still in power? Blah, 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 blah. KSTP5's Darren Wolfson spoke with Spielman in an interview. Spielman was also very glowing about Derek Stingley Jr., the pride of LSU. Come on, man. But he talked about who he would take and blah, blah, blah. So Spielman said this, quote, thinks the world of Hamilton, said Doogie. He didn't outwardly say if Hamilton falls at 12, Kwesi better pull the trigger uber fast, but he laid out seeing Kyle in person at opening game at Notre Dame, Florida State, and Tallahassee. Because remember, last college football season, Rick Spielman was out scouting because thinking that he would still have a job. It's crazy. Rick was in Tallahassee for that game. I got the sense the way he was gushing about Kyle Hamilton and the way you could use Kyle Hamilton in so many different ways. I got the sense talking to Rick that if he were running the Vikings draft this year, he would sprint to the podium to draft Hamilton. Now, it's really interesting because in some ways, you could say that this is a cop-out for Spielman. It's like, well, yes, Kyle Hamilton, who may be the best player in this draft, but he plays a less valuable position, so that can impact his draft value. It's like, oh, yeah, a guy who has minimum top 3, top 5 talent is like, if he's there at 12, I'll take him. He's like, hey, that Aiden Hutchinson guy, if he gets a 12, I will certainly take him, because you're trying to fluff up what you would do. Because now, for the first time in a decade and a half, Rick Spielman can play armchair GM. But also, Spielman still has connections in scouting circles, as well as I'm sure he's got the digits of all the GMs in the league. So I don't think that he's making this up out of whole cloth. I don't think that he's inferring, it's like, well, if Kyle Hamilton falls at 12, I think we would take him. I think that potentially, like, there is some sense that Kyle Hamilton could have a draft day fall because of he didn't check the boxes with his 40 time, even though his play speed is fantastic, or the nature of the safety position, as well as the weird depth that there is in this draft, because Kyle Hamilton top 5 pick versus you can have Brisker or Petrie or whoever you want as a day 2 selection. It's pretty close. It is pretty close there, but Spielman may have a little bit of inside knowledge on what these teams are going to do. And remember, for the last 15 years, his job was to formulate and guesstimate and play a little game of Laden thinks, like every single GM. How do they think? How does the board interact with their current roster? How does it interact with the GM style, what he emphasizes, etc. So, I mean, maybe this is just another sign from very solid inside information that Kyle Hamilton could fall out of the top 10. Now, in terms of where he could land, like if he somehow, some way does make it out of the top 10, I think that if he gets by the Jets and the Giants, because both of those guys have 2 first-round picks, Hamilton would be fantastic on the back end of both those defenses. Washington is certainly a question mark there, because they could use some safety help there. So if Hamilton gets by Washington, I think the Vikings should absolutely take Kyle Hamilton. If it came down to Stingley and Hamilton on the board at the same time, man, I would lean Stingley, but it is super close. It is pretty damn close. But that's really interesting. Spielman talking with Doogie. I highly recommend checking out the full interview. And Spielman, he has changed a little bit, because Spielman used to be the master of talking, and saying nothing. I actually think that he provided some really good insight on this draft and what potentially he would do, because, I mean, he did literally all the legwork on the draft process, and then he got fired in January. So he has the Rolodex and the dossier. He was really digging into these prospects during the offseason. I'm sure he kept tabs on the combine, etc. So, Spielman, Really interesting. Like, he needs to get on TV somewhere. He needs to get another GM job eventually. I'm still a Spielman fan, but yeah, if obviously Hamilton's there, go get it. Big fan of Stingley as well. Go get it. But your thoughts are thoughts. Rick Spielman talks about what he would do with the number 12 overall pick. Let us know your thoughts on our thoughts in the comment section below. Actually, Spielman would trade it down for all the picks in the 7th round. Yeah, go ahead. But let us know your thoughts on our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work, put a little something in the Venmo. But until next time, Skull Production Value.